Hi, I'm Stephanie Graham, and one of the main questions people ask me when they learn what I do for a living is how did I get into estate planning and probate? And it's simple. I used to work in banking while putting myself through undergrad in New York. I worked in banking for nearly 7 years when I experienced at least two customers over that period of time who were unrelated, who came into the bank only to learn that their powers of attorney, their favorite grandson, wiped out their bank account. I remember running to my bank manager with my 22-year-old self and, screaming, Tom, Tom, her money is gone. What can we do? And he said, we can't do anything. They chose that power of attorney. Fast forward, because that incident caused me to go to law school. And as a first generation attorney, when I attended law school, I was just interested in learning everything. I just love to learn. So fast forward in my first year with a private practice law firm after leaving the Bronx District Attorney's Office, a very dear friend passed away, and she had a sickle cell episode while she was visiting her folks in North Carolina. We were in New York, and when I learned that the hospital staff told the surviving husband and her parents that she was going to die anyway, I saw red, as I'm sure any of you would. So I saw red, and I made it my point to find an attorney. I remember going to the firm that I worked with, and they said, no, we don't have anyone that specializes, but we'll find someone for you. And I said, well, if you can find someone, I can find someone too. So I found the best medical malpractice attorney in North Carolina where the hospital was located. And they said, yes, we can help you with this. You will be our associate counsel, but we need you to establish a probate. And I said, say less. I'd never worked on probate before, barely knew what it was. And that was my first probate case. And we settled that case for $500,000. Fast forward to various little items happening throughout my career. And I guess for me, the final straw was in my last employment job, my grandmother passed away when I was 2 months in on the job. And these people actually told me that I did not have enough time on the job to attend my grandmother's funeral. And that is not the first time I had an experience like that with a government entity in Georgia. My sister had an aneurysm when I worked at a prior government entity about 5 years earlier, and she had an aneurysm, and we didn't know she was going to make it. And those fools told me that I didn't have enough time on the job to go to my sister. So both jobs I left because family was first. And I came back and I had a job at both government agencies, but the last one, they pretty much made my life a living hell. That last year, I don't think I realized it, but everything works out as it should. So I was on my way to Target, yes, judge me if you want, or Starbucks, because at the time I was well aware, as most of us were, that you can obtain a job at Starbucks or Target for $20 an hour, and you only had to work 20 hours a week to obtain benefits. And I was literally on my way to both Target and Starbucks because I didn't come to Georgia to prove anything to anyone. When I showed up in Georgia, I already had almost 10 years experience. I tried the most cases in my Bronx District Attorney's Office in New York, as well as in the private practice firm I worked in thereafter. I was the only one in the office who was in court all the time because I hated sitting at the desk and billing. It's like the dumbest thing I ever heard. Yes, we all have to bill, and now that I have my own firm, we have to bill, but that doesn't mean I love it. And so when I showed up in Georgia, I came here to raise my child and mind my business, and people wouldn't let me mind my business. They were always in my business, treating me all kinds of ways. And finally, from government job to government job to government job, I said, forget this law practice business in Georgia because it's not even worth it. So yes, I was on my way to Target and Starbucks when somebody said, well, Stephanie, why did you go to law school? And I said, aha, aha. So yes, I actually went to law school for estate planning and probate, but with, how life happens, Like I said, first generation attorney. I was exposed to so much, and I just wanted to learn and do everything. I remember I worked for the FDIC, and I just knew they were going to hire me. They didn't. I worked for the city council. I changed some of their city regulations during a summer intern. Didn't get a job there. And so the only offer I received when I graduated law school, despite my expansive experience and my prior experience in banking, was the Bronx District Attorney's Office. And I never thought I was going to be able to do a good job with that, but I still remember the New York code better than I know the Georgia code. So that's pretty much my story. That's how I got into estate planning and probate. I was on my way to Target, and somebody said, why did you go to law school? And I said, oh my gosh, I went to law school to practice estate planning and probate. And that was approximately a year after my grandmother died. So my grandmother died in November of 2015. I left that job in, I think it was September of 2016, and started my practice in March of 2017. And that's how we got here. Stephanie Graham. Follow us for more tips and interesting stories. Peace.